There is a strange and lonely experience that almost everyone has lived through, but few can explain. It's the feeling that someone dislikes you, quietly beneath the surface, for no reason you can name. You were kind to them. You did nothing wrong. And yet you can feel it. The subtle coldness, the comment that cut a little too sharp, the way their smile never quite reaches their eyes when you walk in. You replay every interaction looking for the mistake you made, and you find nothing. Because the truth is, there was no mistake. Carl Jung spent his life studying this exact phenomenon, and what he discovered is something almost no one is brave enough to say out loud. Most of the time, when people secretly resent you, it has nothing to do with what you did, and everything to do with what you reminded them of. Because according to Jung, other people don't actually see you, not the real you. They see a screen, and onto that screen they project the parts of themselves they cannot face, the confidence they crushed in themselves, the freedom they never dared to claim, the light they buried so long ago they forgot it was ever theirs. And when they see those things alive in you, something inside them turns cold. Not because you are bad, but because you are a mirror, and most people cannot stand their own reflection. The hatred you feel directed at you was, in a strange and almost tragic way, never really about you at all. Stay until the end of this video, because what Jung uncovered about this goes against everything you've been told. The instinct, when you sense that someone dislikes you, is to shrink, to become smaller, quieter, more agreeable, to figure out what's wrong with you and fix it so they'll finally approve. And that instinct is the exact trap that keeps people prisoners their whole lives. There is a single psychological mechanism that explains nearly all of this hidden resentment, and once you understand it, you will never take another person's secret hatred personally again. You'll see straight through it. So don't skip anything, because each piece builds toward the shift at the end. The one that sets you free from needing the approval of people who were never going to give it. Jung observed a pattern so consistent across human beings that he built an entire framework around it. He noticed that people are rarely reacting to reality. They are reacting to the contents of their own unconscious, projected outward onto the people around them. He called this mechanism projection, and he considered it one of the most powerful and least understood forces in human relationships. The idea is simple but disturbing. The things a person cannot accept in themselves do not disappear. They get pushed down into the unconscious, into what Jung called the shadow, and from there they get cast outward onto other people. So the person who is secretly ashamed of their own cowardice becomes obsessed with calling others weak. The person who buried their own ambition feels a hot flash of contempt for anyone who chases a dream openly. They are not seeing the other person. They are seeing a piece of themselves they exiled long ago. And here is where it becomes personal. When someone resents you for no reason you can identify, what is often happening is that you are unconsciously reminding them of something they gave up. Maybe you speak your mind, and they spent their whole life swallowing their opinions to keep the peace. Maybe you pursue what you love, and they abandoned what they loved decades ago for something safe. Maybe you simply carry yourself with a quiet self-respect, and somewhere deep down they don't believe they deserve the same. They look at you, and instead of seeing a person, they see a living accusation, a reminder of the road they didn't take. And the human ego, faced with that reminder, does not usually respond with admiration. It responds with resentment, because it is far easier to dislike the mirror than to face what the mirror reveals. Jung understood that this is why your light, specifically, is what triggers people. Not your flaws, your light. We assume people will dislike us for our weaknesses, so we hide them. But Jung saw the opposite happening constantly. People are often most disturbed by the strengths in others that expose their own self-betrayal. Your confidence unsettles the insecure. Your discipline irritates the person who keeps breaking promises to themselves. Your peace agitates the person addicted to chaos. Your authenticity threatens everyone who built their identity on a mask. You are not doing anything to them. Your mere existence is holding up a standard they quietly suspect they failed to meet. And rather than rise to it, the wounded ego would prefer to drag the standard down. to make you smaller so they don't have to feel small. There is a name for this in older language, and Nietzsche, who walked some of the same dark territory as Jung, called it resentment. It is the secret venom of the mediocre toward the exceptional. It is the instinct of the crowd to despise and attack whatever it cannot understand or cannot become. And it is everywhere. In the family that grows cold when one member starts to succeed, in the friend group that subtly punishes the one who decides to change their life, in the co-workers who smile to your face while hoping, quietly, that you fail. This is not paranoia. Jung would say it is simply seeing clearly for the first time, because once you understand projection, the social world stops being a mystery and starts being readable. You begin to notice that the intensity of someone's dislike often has nothing to do with the size of your offense, because there was no offense, and everything to do with the size of the wound you accidentally pressed. And if you're recognizing someone in your own life right now, that person whose coldness never made sense, whose resentment you could never explain, write the word awakened in the comments. Jung believed that the moment you name a pattern is the moment it stops controlling you from the dark. Now, here is a detail that catches most people completely off guard. The people most likely to secretly hate you are often not strangers. They are the ones closest to you. And the moment it most often begins is the moment you start to grow. Jung observed that as long as a person stays small, stuck, and struggling, the people around them remain comfortable, because that person reflects their own stagnation back to them. Misery, as the saying goes, loves company, and what it really loves is company that confirms the misery is normal, unavoidable, just how life is. But the instant someone in that system begins to change, starts setting boundaries, healing, succeeding, becoming more themselves, they break the unspoken agreement. Suddenly they are no longer a mirror of everyone's stuckness. They have become a mirror of everyone's potential, and that is intolerable, because if you can change, it means they could have too, and chose not to. Your growth becomes living proof of their excuses, so they don't celebrate it. They resist it. They call you arrogant, distant, not the same person anymore. And in a way, they're right. You're not. You just stop being convenient for their illusions. The cruelest part of all this, Jung pointed out, is that the people projecting onto you usually have no idea they're doing it. This is not conscious villainy. The friend who undermines you genuinely believes they're just being honest. The relative who belittles your dreams genuinely believes they're protecting you from disappointment. The colleague who competes with you in every conversation genuinely believes they're just ambitious. The shadow operates beneath awareness. That's precisely what makes it the shadow. So when you try to confront these people directly, asking why they treat you the way they do, they're often baffled, even hurt. Because consciously, they don't hate you. They would be horrified to admit it. The hatred lives in the basement of their psyche, leaking out through tone, through timing, through the 1,000 tiny cruelties that are impossible to prove and impossible to ignore. You feel it in your body long before you could ever explain it in words. And for years, maybe, you assumed that feeling was your own paranoia. It wasn't. It was your own perception, reading a truth the other person couldn't even admit to themselves. So what does a person do with this? Here is where almost everyone makes the fatal mistake. The natural reaction to sensing that you're disliked is to shrink, to dim your light, to soften your opinions, lower your ambitions, hide your wins, apologize for taking up space, all in the desperate hope that if you become small enough, palatable enough, unthreatening enough, the resentment will finally stop and people will finally approve of you. And Jung would call this one of the great tragedies of the human life, because it doesn't work. You can shrink yourself to nothing, and the projection will simply find a new target, or worse, the person will resent you anyway, now adding your weakness to the list, because the wounded ego is never actually satisfied. You will have betrayed yourself, dimmed your own fire, abandoned your own becoming, all to buy the approval of people whose approval was never real to begin with. You traded your soul for a peace that never came. And here is the part that stings, but that you need to hear. Dimming yourself to avoid other people's resentment is itself a form of cowardice, a quiet betrayal of the person you were meant to become. Jung was relentless about this. He believed the central task of a human life was individuation, becoming the full, complete, authentic version of who you actually are. And you cannot individuate while simultaneously editing yourself down to fit the comfort level of people threatened by your existence. At some point, every person who wants to live a real life has to make a brutal choice: be liked by people living small, or be free. You usually cannot have both, because the very things that make you free, your authenticity, your growth, your refusal to perform, are the exact things that provoke the people who chose the cage. But, and this is crucial, Jung was not telling you to become arrogant, cold, or cruel in response. That's the opposite trap, and it's just as much a prison. The answer is not to start despising the people who resent you, because then their shadow has successfully infected yours, and you've become exactly the bitter thing they are. The real answer is something far more difficult and far more powerful: understanding. When you truly grasp that another person's resentment is a confession about their own inner world, something inside you relaxes. You stop taking it personally, because you finally understand it was never personal. The coldness, the digs, the quiet hostility, they were never a verdict on your worth. They were a map of someone else's unhealed wounds. And you can read that map with compassion instead of carrying it as a sentence. Jung would also say there's a deeper, more uncomfortable layer of work here. And it's the part that separates real growth from mere self-righteousness. Because the same projection that others aim at you, you almost certainly aim at others. The people who irritate you for no reason, the ones you feel an instant disproportionate dislike toward, they are very often showing you your own shadow, the parts of yourself you've disowned. So the mature response to understanding projection is not just to feel liberated from other people's hatred. It's to turn the lens inward and ask, where am I doing this too? Where am I hating in someone else what I refuse to face in myself? This is what Jung meant by withdrawing your projections, taking back the pieces of yourself you've been scattering onto the world, and integrating them. The person who does this becomes almost impossible to manipulate, because they're no longer fighting phantoms. They see clearly, in others and in themselves, and from that clarity comes a strange and quiet kind of power. The person who has integrated their shadow and understood projection stops needing the approval of the crowd, because they no longer mistake the crowd's reactions for the truth about who they are. They can feel someone's resentment and remain warm, remain themselves, remain whole, not because they've hardened, but because they've understood. They become, in Jung's terms, genuinely sovereign. Their sense of worth is no longer outsourced to people who were never qualified to judge it. And here's the paradox Jung loved. The moment you stop needing people to approve of you, you stop being controllable by their resentment, and you often become more magnetic, not less. Because there is nothing in this world more compelling than a person who is fully themselves and completely unbothered by the small minds trying to shrink them. So here is where this lands. And now I'm speaking directly to you. The next time you feel that cold, unexplainable resentment from someone, the friend who can't be happy for you, the relative who cuts you down, the colleague rooting for your failure, remember what Jung understood. They are not seeing you. They are seeing a part of themselves they buried, and your light is shining straight into the grave where they put it. Their hatred is not a measure of your worth. It is a measure of their wound. And the worst thing you could ever do is dim yourself to soothe it, because the world does not need one more person who made themselves small to keep cowards comfortable. It needs you to become who you actually are, resentment and all. So ask yourself honestly, how much of your life have you spent shrinking to avoid the disapproval of people who were never going to truly accept you anyway? And what would you become if you finally stopped? If this video pressed on something real, leave the word "awakened" in the comments. Leave a like so this truth reaches someone who's been quietly carrying the weight of other people's projections. And subscribe, because making the unconscious conscious is the only thing that turns your fate into a choice. But before you go, there's a deeper question underneath all of this. If other people project their shadow onto you, what exactly is hiding in your own shadow? And why does facing it terrify you more than anything else? Carl Jung had a haunting answer, and that's exactly what the next video, already on your screen, is about. Watch it next, because the freedom you're looking for was never in their approval. It was always waiting in the parts of yourself you've been most afraid to meet.